£27 billion trade loss. That's the staggering price of Brexit's early years, with thousands of small businesses shutting their doors to EU markets. The UK's departure from the European Union not only disrupted its economy but also affected global trade networks spanning Europe, America, and even Asia. While giants like Germany and France stumbled as a result of Brexit, some nations emerged as an unlikely winner and found new opportunities amidst the chaos. From supply chain breakdowns to newly minted trade agreements, Brexit's impact stretches far beyond European borders. So who gained, who lost, and how has the global trade map been redrawn? Let's uncover the winners and losers of Brexit. When the United Kingdom officially left the European Union, the world watched as one of the most significant geopolitical shifts in modern history began to unfold. Brexit's impact was not just confined to the UK or Europe, it rippled across the globe, reshaping trade dynamics in unexpected and often challenging ways. So let's break it down and see how Brexit has left its mark on global trade. First, let's talk about the hard numbers. In just the first 2 years post-Brexit, the UK saw a staggering £27 billion loss in trade with the EU. For small businesses in particular, this shift was catastrophic. Over 14,000 small firms out of 100,000 analysed completely stopped trading with EU nations. Why? Increased trade barriers, tariffs, and the sheer administrative burden that came with new customs procedures forced them out of the game. However, while smaller players struggled, larger firms managed to weather the storm, mostly maintaining their trade volumes with EU partners. This divide highlights one of Brexit's most significant challenges: the uneven playing field it created within the business community. Supply chains didn't escape unscathed either. With new customs duties, labour shortages, and heightened costs due to delays, industries across the board faced mounting pressure. For instance, ensuring food safety and authenticity became more complicated, driving up prices. Who bore the brunt of this? Low-income households already stretched thin found themselves carrying a disproportionate load. And the effects weren't just limited to the UK. EU nations felt the pinch too. Spain saw a 7% increase in the likelihood of its firms halting exports to the UK. Meanwhile, France and Germany, key trading partners for Britain, saw trade performances fall below the global average. Brexit didn't just cut ties, it made doing business across the Channel significantly harder. Now, on the flip side, while Brexit introduced challenges, it also opened doors. By stepping out of the EU single market, the UK gained the freedom to forge its own trade deals with countries around the world. This newfound independence allowed Britain to target markets beyond Europe, creating opportunities to reduce trade barriers and enhance global market access. But has this strategy paid off? Not entirely. While the UK has inked new agreements, the economic gains haven't quite met expectations. Trade openness, the ratio of a nation's imports and exports to its GDP, has taken a hit. For context, this graph shows that by 2021, the UK's trade openness had dropped 3 percentage points below its 2019 levels. Compare that to France, which managed a slight increase of 0.4 percentage points, and the gap becomes even clearer. So, Brexit has undeniably reshaped global trade. For the UK, it's been a mixed bag, new opportunities paired with substantial economic challenges. For the EU, the loss of a key trading partner has complicated intra-European and transatlantic dynamics. And for the rest of the world, Brexit serves as a powerful reminder of how interconnected our global economies truly are. Brexit's implications for trade between the UK and EU weren't just a matter of minor adjustments. They marked a seismic shift in how goods and services moved across borders. So let's explore the fallout. The withdrawal of free movement rights and the introduction of new trade barriers caused cross-border trade between the UK and EU to become significantly more expensive. Goods trade, in particular, took a massive hit. Take a look at these graphs. Between 2021 and 2023, UK goods exports to the EU plummeted by 27%, while imports dropped by 32%. That's not a minor dip, it's a collapse. And the effects weren't just about volume. The variety of goods exported also shrank dramatically. According to a study, 1,645 fewer types of British products were exported to every EU country during this period. Smaller businesses bore the brunt of these changes, with many simply opting out of trading with the EU altogether. But why such a sharp decline? The Trade and Cooperation Agreement (TCA), while eliminating tariffs and quotas, introduced new costs. Businesses now had to navigate customs clearance, rules of origin certifications, and compliance with stringent sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Transport costs soared as goods spent longer waiting at customs, and value-added tax or VAT payments added yet another layer of expense. These hurdles turned trade into a logistical and financial nightmare, particularly for smaller firms lacking the resources to adapt. This new reality didn't just hurt UK exporters. EU businesses, including Spanish firms, also faced setbacks. Spanish exports to the UK dropped by 24%, while imports from the UK fell by 27%. Large firms, surprisingly, faced steeper declines in exports than their smaller counterparts, especially for products requiring stricter compliance with technical standards and sanitary measures. Now, let's talk about the numbers for 2023. The UK exported £356 billion worth of goods and services to the EU, representing 42% of all UK exports. Imports from the EU, meanwhile, totaled £466 billion, accounting for 52% of all imports. This imbalance left the UK with a £110 billion trade deficit with the EU, driven by a £134 billion shortfall in goods trade that far outweighed a £24 billion surplus in services. The services sector, interestingly, fared much better. While goods trade struggled to recover, UK service exports to the EU were 9% higher in 2023 compared to 2019 levels. Non-EU service exports saw an even stronger rebound, growing 15% over the same period. This contrast highlights a broader trend. Brexit hurt goods trade more significantly than services. Still, the overall picture isn't rosy. UK goods exports to the EU remained 11% below their pre-pandemic and pre-Brexit levels. And it wasn't just an EU issue. Exports to non-EU countries were also down by 11% compared to 2019. Clearly, Brexit wasn't the only factor at play. Global disruptions like COVID-19, the Ukraine conflict, and supply chain issues added fuel to the fire. In terms of trade partners, the EU's share of UK exports and imports has remained significant but has shown some shifts. By 2023, the EU accounted for 41% of UK exports and 51% of imports, a stable but slightly reduced share compared to pre-Brexit levels. Zooming out, the UK's total trade deficit in 2023 stood at £15 billion, with a surplus in services £173 billion, nearly offsetting a goods trade deficit £188 billion. However, the current account deficit widened to £60 billion, about 2.2% of GDP, reflecting the broader economic challenges facing the UK. So what does all this mean? Brexit has reshaped the UK-EU trade landscape, introducing higher costs, reduced variety, and significant trade imbalances. While the UK continues to adapt to its post-Brexit reality, the economic consequences of this monumental shift are far from over. Let's break down how Brexit has sent ripples across the Atlantic to the US and across the globe to China. For the US, Brexit has reshaped its economic relationship with the UK, which remains America's largest European investment destination. To put this in perspective, US companies have poured nearly $758 billion into the British market, a figure that accounts for about 25% of all US investments in Europe and 12% globally. This long-standing partnership, however, now faces logistical and regulatory hurdles post-Brexit. Historically, the UK functioned as a gateway for American companies into Europe, offering seamless access to the EU single market. But with Brexit, those days of frictionless trade are over. Companies must now navigate customs duties, VAT obligations, and complex rules of origin to qualify for tariff-free trade. For instance, a product might need to meet specific criteria, such as a threshold for locally sourced materials, to sidestep hefty taxes. Take US manufacturing firms, for example. These companies, particularly in industries like automotive and aerospace, are grappling with delays and increased costs. Auto parts that once moved effortlessly across the English Channel now require multiple certifications and clearances. Aerospace manufacturers face even stricter scrutiny, as the UK's regulatory bodies lag behind their EU counterparts in certifying safety standards. While some businesses have relocated their distribution hubs to mainland Europe, many still rely on the UK, making expert consultations essential to navigate the new trade landscape. Despite these hurdles, trade between the US and the UK remains robust, as depicted in this graph. In the year leading up to Q2 2024, total trade in goods and services amounted to £304.3 billion. The UK exported £188.2 billion to the US, which included £59 billion in goods and a staggering £129.2 billion in services. Meanwhile, US exports to the UK totaled £116.1 billion. Interestingly, the UK enjoys a £72 billion trade surplus with the US, driven by both goods and services. The strong trade ties underscore the importance of resolving post-Brexit challenges efficiently. Now, let's shift focus to China, the UK's fifth largest trading partner. Trade between these two nations has shown consistent growth, with a total trade value of £87.7 billion by Q2 2024. However, this relationship isn't without its challenges, especially given the UK's largest trade deficit, £23.7 billion, with China. For British businesses in China, Brexit has been less impactful compared to their US counterparts. A survey from the British Chamber of Commerce in China revealed that 50% of businesses felt no Brexit-related effects, while 25% reported only slight challenges. Instead, regulatory hurdles and market dynamics continue to dominate concerns. On the flip side, Chinese businesses have taken a cautious approach toward investing in the UK. Concerns about immigration policies, labour access, and market uncertainty have prompted many to diversify their strategies. Despite this, confidence among Chinese investors remains high, with a focus on expanding operations in the UK. The post-Brexit tariff regime, the UK Global Tariff, has offered greater market access for Chinese goods, ensuring the trade relationship continues to grow despite challenges. Brexit has undeniably changed the UK's global trade dynamics. While it has strained traditional partnerships with Europe, it has also opened opportunities for independent trade policies with countries like the US and China. Ireland, often viewed as deeply interconnected with the UK, has emerged as one of Brexit's most unexpected winners. Despite initial concerns about potential disruptions, Ireland has not only weathered the Brexit storm, but has also leveraged it to its advantage. Let's talk numbers. Ireland became the biggest beneficiary of the €5.37 billion Brexit Adjustment Reserve. Nearly €920.4 million from this reserve was allocated to Ireland in late 2021, helping to offset challenges and stabilise its economy. Beyond that, EU programmes like Peace and Interreg, which support reconciliation and development in Northern Ireland and border regions, contributed €3.4 billion across more than 23,000 projects. But the financial upswing doesn't stop there. Post-Brexit customs duties have been a game-changer for Ireland. Before Brexit, imports from Great Britain entered customs-free. But Boris Johnson's hard Brexit brought fresh controls and duties on goods like food and clothing. Ireland saw a staggering 90% jump in customs revenues between 2020 and 2021 alone. Between 2019 and 2023, customs revenue consistently soared, peaking with an 80% rise in 2022 compared to pre-Brexit levels. This customs windfall amounted to an additional €700 million in revenue, most of which came from imports originating in China but transiting through the UK. In trade, Ireland remains the UK's sixth largest partner, with bilateral trade reaching £83.6 billion by mid-2024. Irish exports to the UK stood at £29.6 billion, while UK exports to Ireland hit £54 billion, showcasing robust economic ties despite Brexit's challenges. Ireland's success story underscores its resilience and the strategic advantages of EU membership in navigating the Brexit fallout. Since leaving the European Union, the UK has been transitioning from EU-led agreements to forging its own. So where does the UK stand today? First, the basics. The UK has transitioned 71 EU-negotiated trade agreements into UK law. Among its new deals, FTAs with Australia and New Zealand took effect in May 2023. While their economic impact has been limited so far due to trading distances, over half of surveyed business leaders see them as beneficial. A major milestone is the UK's accession to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership (CPTPP). Exports to CPTPP countries were valued at £61.3 billion in 2022. The pact offers significant benefits, like regional accumulation, which simplifies the supply chain for industries like vehicle manufacturing and green technology. The agreement has already been ratified by several key members and is expected to be fully in force by late 2024. Ongoing negotiations are equally ambitious. Talks with India hold the greatest economic promise, with potential to boost bilateral trade by £28 billion. But challenges remain. India's focus on goods and mobility provisions contrasts with the UK's push for services and digital trade. The Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC, deal also shows promise. With UK GCC trade at £62 billion in 2022, this agreement could deepen ties, particularly with individual states like the UAE. Enhanced FTAs with Switzerland, Korea, and Israel aim to modernize goods-focused agreements to include services, digital trade, and environmental issues. For example, UK-Swiss services trade alone was worth £27.9 billion in 2023. Despite these efforts, many deals are rollovers, mimicking EU terms. The journey is ongoing, but the UK's trade map is slowly evolving, presenting new opportunities and challenges alike. Brexit has been a wake-up call for global trade, reshaping how nations approach economic relationships. So what can we learn from it? Brexit highlighted the importance of flexibility in trade agreements. The UK's departure from the EU single market and customs union created immediate challenges, from disrupted supply chains to increased customs duties, but it also forced the UK to pivot, signing deals with over 70 nations and joining the CPTPP. Another lesson lies in sector-specific impacts. Agreements with Australia and New Zealand raised concerns among UK farmers, who feared being undercut by cheaper imports. This underscores the need for protections when liberalising trade. Finally, Brexit emphasises the value of regional blocs. The EU's combined strength offered stability and bargaining power. In contrast, the UK's solo efforts have faced hurdles, like the stalled India FTA negotiations. The case study of Brexit reminds that while independence allows for tailored policies, it demands strategic foresight to manage risks and seize opportunities.